This is Fantasy OT. Let's talk about 3 players that are overvalued. First up, let's talk about Aaron Rodgers. I know the hype is at an all-time high with Hard Knocks going on and all, but let's pump the brakes. Rodgers had 12 interceptions last year, the second most of his career, and he finished as the QB 13, behind guys like Geno Smith, Jared Goff, and Kirk Cousins. At this point, I would draft all 3 of them ahead of Rodgers. I would even take Anthony Richardson. The Jets have a lot of questions up front at offensive line, and I think that's going to make or break Rodgers this season. Elijah Vera-Tucker's coming off a season where he had a torn triceps and missed most of the year, and Mekhi Becton has missed the last 2 seasons with knee injuries. So there's a lot of questions around whether, 1, they're going to be able to stay healthy, and 2, whether or not they can gel quickly enough. Also, the Jets seem pretty committed to the run. They brought in Dalvin Cook. If Breece Hall is really as healthy as they're saying, they're going to be running the ball more than they're going to be passing it. Rodgers is undoubtedly one of the greatest of all time, but in my mind, he's on the back end of his career. If you look at the stats over the last 5 years, aside from the 2 MVP seasons, he's kind of been on the decline. In each of the last 4 seasons, he's seen his rushing total drop. And in those 3 seasons where he was an MVP, his touchdown numbers, not so great. He only had 25, 26, and 26. Also, his receiving core leaves much to be desired, behind Garrett Wilson, of course. He has his 2 friends, Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb, but both of them may not even be in the league without Rodgers. Cobb definitely wouldn't, but Lazard, at the very best, is a WR3 in my opinion. The one thing that should help Rodgers' case a little bit is the fact that the Jets have such a great defense, but they're in the AFC East, so they're going to have to play the Patriots twice, the Bills twice, and the Dolphins twice. Those are 6 very difficult games. So in the 8th, 9th round, I think you could do a lot better. Next up, James Cook. Fun fact for you, James Cook's full name is James Dalvin Cook, and his brother's full name is Dalvin James Cook. I just always found that interesting. Anyway, James Cook, I think, is being drafted way too early. He averaged 5.7 yards per carry last year, which looks great on paper, but only had 89 carries. He had 21 receptions, which is really nice, but that's still really low volume for a potentially number 1 back. At 5'11", 190, I'm not sure his body can handle even 200 carries. I would think behind this offensive line that's a bottom 10 O-line, he's going to have to either be really efficient or really elusive, and I'm not sure he can do it. The Bills are definitely pass-focused, throwing the ball 60% of the time last year, and they have not produced a 1,000-yard rusher since LaShawn McCoy in 2017. Devin Singletary didn't crack it once in the last 4 years, and Singletary averaged 4 touchdowns per year during that span. That doesn't spell a formula for success for Cook, in my opinion. So I think if you are looking for a running back at that 6-7 turn where Cook is currently being drafted, I would much rather go with Khalil Herbert or Isaiah Pacheco. Topping our list, Alexander Mattison. I know the craze around Mattison is also really high because Dalvin Cook is no longer on the team, but looking at the stats, it tells a different story. Last year, Mattison averaged 3.8 yards per carry, and the year before, he averaged 3.7. So he's never been a model of efficiency. And I think in order for him to have value this year, he's either going to need a really large workload or be touchdown dependent. And that's a situation I don't think you want to be in, especially for a 5th or 6th round pick. The Vikings are definitely pass first. They only ran the ball 35% of the time last year. And they doubled down this year by drafting Jordan Addison in the 1st round and extending TJ Hawkinson. Also, Kirk Cousins is in a contract year, so he has all the motivation in the world to pad his passing stats. I think Mattison is going to lose 3rd down work to Ty Chandler or the newly signed Myles Gaskin. Also, the Vikings brought in Kareem Hunt a few weeks ago for a workout, and they've been bringing in free agent running backs over the past few weeks, so it wouldn't surprise me if they signed somebody else. The running back room's pretty thin behind Mattison, and while it seems like Mattison will get all the work on paper, I don't think that's going to last for very long, even if he does start the season without them signing someone. Lastly, I really didn't like the fact that he didn't play in the preseason. I know he had an undisclosed injury he was dealing with, and it seems like it hasn't affected him because it sounds like he's been practicing, but it would have been nice to see him get some reps coming into week 1. If you do decide to draft him, I would target him in the 8th or 9th round or even later if you can, and I would keep a close eye on that week 1 injury report. Those are 3 players I feel are overvalued. Please subscribe and let me know who you think is overvalued in the comments below.